Welcome to Quays TV News. I'm Siobhan Maguire.
And I'm Bradley Harris. Our top story today.
The courts say go, protesters say no. The anti-fracking campaign goes on at Barton Moss.
Amid tensions back home, Manchester's Ukrainians find something to celebrate about.
And Manchester versus food. Find out what happened when our team took on this calorific challenge. Good afternoon. Barton Moss has been host to a fracking protest camp for the past 3 months. Now campaigners have been told by the courts to move.
But will it actually happen? The initial deadline's been and gone. Penny James has more.
Hello folks, welcome to the Barton Moss Community Protection Camp.
For 17 weeks, anti-fracking protesters have been living at this iGas site in Salford.
Some people have been packing up, as we can see. Other folks are still here. We've got new people even arriving still, so it's very in flux, but very happening still, absolutely.
They claim fracking is dangerous for the environment and those living around fracking sites. Peel Group, who own the land, have won a court case to evict the protesters, even though the land they live on is leased to a farmer. Today, the protesters were granted permission to appeal the decision to be evicted, and a hearing will be held later this week. Twice a day, a convoy of lorries enters and leaves the site near Eccles. As a form of protest, campaigners walk in front of the convoy to slow it down.
It is assault. I am entitled to walk.
It is during these marches the protesters claim major police brutality has been witnessed.
Last 4 months I've witnessed police brutality on an immense scale. I've seen old ladies assaulted, I've seen young children assaulted, I've seen disabled people assaulted, I've seen people pushed into ditches, pushed to the side of the road.
There have been a number of videos on social media questioning the actions of officers at the protest site, and as per GMP policy, any formal complaint will be looked at. Spirits are never down at the camp, with plenty of music to go round and dedicated locals bringing hot food for protesters. The sun is shining and the camp is happy for now, but we can only wait to see how long this community will be able to remain here. Penny James, Quays TV News.
Now, moving on to some national news. Business Secretary Vince Cable's announced an increase to the minimum wage for the first time in 6 years. There's a 3% rise, bringing the hourly rate to £6.50. Experts had suggested it should be £6.65 and £8.80 for London.
Salford Students' Union's about to get a new president. A question time style debate's been held for hopeful candidates. Former President Christina Lorraine led the live-streamed event.
Now, you can't have missed the tensions between Russian and Ukrainian forces in Crimea, but Ukrainians in the northwest have been celebrating this for entirely different reasons.
Yes, it's the anniversary of the birth of one of the country's greatest literary figures. Jamie Stalboyski reports.
As Ukrainians celebrated poet Taras Shevchenko's life this week, they called on Western governments for political support.
Well, obviously it's a very difficult situation. Nobody wants bloodshed. They want the Western community, United States, to try and get Russia to abide by the agreements that they have signed. At the moment, there's a lot of talk about sanctions, but there's very little happening at the moment. And until he starts to see that the West is really going to make it difficult for him, Putin is just going to carry on what he's doing.
The current situation leaves many local Russians with concerns.
There is a concern, I think not only mine, but quite widely shared, about whether this situation in the Crimea indicates a kind of longer-term strategy of Russia of interfering with other neighboring states under the pretext of defending Russian-speaking minorities there.
If Crimea does want a referendum, they need to hold it politically and within a certain given time. They can't just elect one to happen on the 16th of March, because I know other nations have said it won't be sort of counted as a legal election in a sense, and they won't sort of have it as constitutionally done. there definitely needs to be more dialogue between the two sides.
As Putin ponders his next step, Ukrainians show their pride. Jamie Staboyski, Quays TV News.
TV presenter and DJ Terry Christian is bringing his stand-up show to Manchester. The tour has already seen him perform throughout the UK. This Saturday sees Terry bring his show to the Irish Club in Chorlton. He tells us what the audience can expect on the night.
Naked confessions of a recovering Catholic, slowly but surely, in a wading through treacle way. I mean, I've probably done about 30 gigs, but that's like spread out over the best part of 18 months now. The themes are all about guilt and feeling bad about everything, even sometimes feeling bad about the fact that you don't feel bad. And we've all been there, haven't we?
Now, this is the bit I've been looking forward to. The Manchester Irish Festival has kicked off. 200 events are taking place over the next week and a half, and I've been joining the celebrations.
Are you Irish, Siobhan?
Oh, would you not know by my accent, no?
No, sorry, I thought you were Welsh.
Oh, right. We must have a very similar accent. But with a mixture of music, art and dancing, it will give Mancunians a chance to connect with their Irish roots.
Singer-songwriter Sean Taylor headlined the opening night of the Budweiser Irish Blues Weekend, which forms part of the Manchester Irish Festival.
When you have different cultures living side by side, you get different music, different cultures, different ideas coming to the fore, and there's a great history of great bands in Manchester, you know.
Now in its 19th year, the Manchester Irish Festival remains the biggest in Europe outside Ireland, with around 200,000 people expected to visit the city.
Most people just want to celebrate St Pat's Day itself, but that's not good enough for us to fit everything in. It's a mixture of art, music, comedy, song, dance and culture.
The Keegan Academy of Irish Dancing are also giving lessons at Chorlton Irish Club. Some start learning to Irish dance from as young as 4 years of age.
The younger you start, really, the better. Like anything, the earlier you can do it, the better you will be.
As well as the exercise, the kids also have fun and learn at the same time.
Well, you get to learn new steps and you get to meet all your friends.
So, if you want to wear your shamrock and join in the celebrations, you can find a list of all the events taking place via our website at quaysnews.net. This is Siobhan Maguire, Quays TV News.
So Bradley, what did you make of that Irish dancing?
Well, Siobhan, I'm actually doing some Ceilidh dancing of my own tonight. Yes, you should come along.
Yeah, I might do. I can teach you some of the skills.
That'd be great. So, Manchester has had a tasty treat last weekend when the Sugarcraft cake decorating and baking show took place.
Yes, sounds far too tasty because Amelia Minchiva went to Event City to see what it was all about and didn't bring us back any samples, unfortunately.
Really?
Cakes, chocolate muffins and delicious Sugarcraft. It definitely feels like heaven. Offering top tips and creative ideas in the art of decorating, Cake International is back to Manchester for a second year in a row.
Some of the cakes are just absolutely fantastic. I mean, I thought my mum was good, but there's definitely people topping her there, really.
The show is designed for both professional bakers and newcomers to Sugarcraft.
I feel so happy. I'm over the moon. Well, it all started in 2010 when my son asked me to do a Mickey Mouse cake. Before that, I didn't know how to frost a cake properly.
I'm about to throw a coin in the famous Trevi fountain in Rome. But wait, this is not Rome and this is not Italy. We are in Manchester today, celebrating one of the most exciting and delicious cake exhibitions. Expert judges examined the delicious creations and offered advice and tips to the bakers.
I'm a sci-fi fan, and I love all these models and the colours, the texture. It's beautiful. She really has worked and blended on this cake. It's a very, very nice piece of work.
The next exhibition will take place in London next month. For Quays TV News, Emilia Mincheva.
Okay, so let's get some sports news. Jess, are you a fan of cakes?
I absolutely am, but unfortunately, we've not got any time for eating cakes because it's time for the sport. And Manchester City need to bounce back after Sunday's shock FA Cup quarter-final defeat to Wigan if they want to progress in the Champions League. The Blues are already 2-0 down against Barcelona, but fans still believe that their team can turn it around in tonight's second leg at the Nou Camp.
chance, not a great chance, but hope springs eternal.
I think we can beat them on Wednesday night, but I don't think we're going to score 3 goals against them. Barca is too good, they hold the ball too well, so getting the ball off them's a problem. But they're shaky at defence, so we'll score a couple. If Aguero's on song, we'll score a couple.
Oh, it's going to be a tough one, but I think we'll get a draw there, if I'm honest with you. Well, that's it, then out of another cup, and just concentrate on the Premier League then.
Now, the Manchester Minotaurs were looking for revenge on Sunday against the Whitley Warriors, who beat them 7-1 when the teams met last week. The Warriors took a 2-goal lead in the first period, but the Minotaurs came back in the second to make it 3-2. However, the Warriors equalised in the third period to leave with a draw. So you may have heard of the Arabian Derby, the Manchester Derby, or even the Epsom Derby, but here's a new one for you, the Roller Derby. It's rough for some, but Lucinda Parker shows us why it's so popular.
A new sport has arrived in England, a tactical and almost vicious sport combining roller skating and racing, roller derby. One of the local teams in the area is the reigning City Girls from Oldham. They are an all-female, full-contact roller derby league established in 2008, who compete regularly against other teams in the UK. They held their first ever match of the year on Saturday night against Royal Windsor at their own training venue, the Thunderdome in Oldham. Hundreds of people turned up to watch and support their local team. Speaking to a few of them, it was clear just how passionate they are about the sport.
I've been playing for Rainy City since November. Enjoying it. I really love it. It's a great sport. I would say, did you love disco skates when you were a child? Do you love random tights? And do you sometimes have anger inside you want to get rid of? In which case, come down.
Only been a couple of times, but really enjoying it.
So what exactly is roller derby? Well, each team is made up of 5 players, 4 blockers and 1 jammer. The jammer has to get past the 4 blockers of the opposing team, thus winning points. However, as the name indicates, the blockers have to do everything to prevent this from happening. This makes the game fast, fierce and action-packed. Speaking to the captain after the game, she told me about the amount of effort they have to put into the sport, especially their tactics.
I think it went as good as we could have expected, really. Obviously, the scoreline, we won. If you would have seen us maybe like 6 months ago, you can see that we've become like tighter and stronger. I think we've always been a very defensive team, and I think we've just even tightened that up a bit.
It's hard to imagine these women in their day-to-day lives. However, there are 2 players from the reigning City Girls who are making names for themselves in the roller derby world outside of the Northwest. This is the case for players Missy Rascal, aka Kerry, and Randy Razorlegs, aka Faye Roberts. These 2 have both been selected to represent the reigning City Girls at the World Championships in Texas later on this year.
It's not been selected yet, but we're on the training squad, so we'll be attending the practices, and so we hope.
We're going to try our hardest to get on that squad.
We're going to try and get there. It's in
I'm
Texas,
happy just to get this far.
Yeah.
The reigning City Girls hold training sessions every Monday to get new people involved and show them just how fun it can be. They show beginners the basic techniques of how to skate, fall safely, and a few tricks of the trade. I went on to give it a go, and I'll tell you now, it's a lot harder than it looks.
Even though it's a sport that not many people have heard of,
Now that's all for sport. It's time to roll back to Siobhan and Bradley.
Oh, thanks, Jess. I like what you did there. Very smart. But we're here now with Will Carlisle, our film buff. Will, what film are you talking to us about this week?
Well, this week's film is 300 Rise of an Empire, which is a sequel to the 2007, 7 years ago, blimey, film 300 directed by Zack Snyder. And even people who haven't seen 300 are at least aware of it. It's become a very iconic movie. And this is an interesting sequel as it takes place before, during and after the previous movie. And it has a different creative team. It's not the same director. Zack Snyder has moved on to Superman and Batman, etc. But it's a very easy movie to recommend. As in, did you like 300, the first movie?
Not particularly, no.
Then you probably won't like this one. What about you, Bradley?
I actually haven't seen the movie, so...
Fix that, because I think it's a very good movie. And plus, you'll know that if you liked the previous one, you'll like this one. The villain is the big standout. Eva Green is the big star of the movie, really. She steals every scene she's in. She's fantastic. The violence is gory as hell, but it's very enjoyable. It's got a great comic book aesthetic, which is inspired by Frank Miller's comic books. And it's just a gory, funny time, but there's practically no substance to it. It's all style, no substance, and while there's nothing wrong with that, if you want something a bit more substantial, then you might want to look elsewhere.
I think that's the thing I didn't like about the first one, is that I didn't feel there was any story.
Yeah,
it was just
it is pretty much
the
just
image, yeah.
100 minutes of manly machismo with Gerald Butler and abs, which some people may appeal to. It is a guilty pleasure movie for me, not for Gerald Butler and abs. But I think it's a good movie, not as good as the first one, but it is riding that same train. It is pretty much the same type of aesthetic and style, so I think it's a good movie.
When is this film going to be out, Will?
It was released wide last Friday, so it's at most cinemas now.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Will.
Will.
Thank you for that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so...
We're not letting you get away that
no,
easily,
we're
Will.
not going to let you get away that easily. Please stay with us, Will. We talked about films.
Yes.
Now we're going to talk about food.
Okay.
I've heard that me and Siobhan have been speaking to some people, and we've heard that you've been a bit of a greedy boy.
Yes.
Oh, you've caught me in the act. Well, in a challenge that would make 300 Spartans quake in fear, some of the Quays News team took them to the Manchester's Man vs. Food Challenge, but I'll let Dan McLaughlin explain.
So, you think you can be a food correspondent, eh? Think you've got the stomach for it? Let's see if you are worthy. I challenge thee to the Manchester vs. Food Challenge. Never has the phrase food to kill been used so literally. The 7-Eleven's challenge is made up of a 20-ounce monster burger, a sea of fries, and lest ye forget, suicide wings. I think I'm going to need some help with this. News team, assemble!
I am literally Jesus doing this challenge. I've got my disciples, and this is my last supper.
And I want you to eat for 40 days and 40 nights after this. You have 45 minutes to complete the challenge, and this wasn't looking good.
Pretty sure I'm about to burst into tears already.
May the odds be ever in everybody's favour for the first Quays News Hunger Games. I can't even talk, it's that spicy.
How did they do? It's a difficult question to answer. I'd probably say that two out of 4 did well. The other 2, I'm slightly disappointed. I think they should maybe a little bit more training. The two wingmen, the guys who had the ribs and the chicken, maybe the guys with the burgers struggled a little bit, maybe due to the suicide sauce. I think that was the critical part of the dish, really.
After failing miserably, I need to start working this off. Dan McLaughlin, Quays TV News.
My God, Will, how did you do that?
Well, none of us actually finished the challenge, so we didn't even do that. I'd love to say that we went in there boys and came out men, but we just came out there bigger boys, really.
And do you know of any people that have actually been able to finish off the whole meal?
According to the staff, there's only one person who's been able to finish it, who was a student. But the challenge is to finish it in 45 minutes, but even though we finished it, he took 55 minutes. So it's not a challenge.
Still a good feat.
It's not a challenge for the faint-hearted. It's not so much the amount as the spice. It's very spicy food. The chicken wings are called suicide wings, if that's any indication.
Oh my God.
And I don't like spicy food to begin with, but I foolishly took on the challenge and failed.
What was the hardest part of it all?
For me, it was the spice, because we had spicy ribs, whereas 2 of our other presenters had burgers. For them, it was the amount, but for us, it was the spice. But really, it's just this amount of... we had chicken coming out of our brains. It was just that much food with that many spices. It was just overwhelming, really.
I don't think I could do that myself. I think we'd have to have a sharing platter.
Yeah, sharing
Siobhan.
platter sounds good. Sounds romantic.
Okay, so now, as many of you know, the weather has been shining on Manchester recently, so let's see if this is going to continue. Please tell us the good news, Helen.
Thanks, Bradley. I have actually got some good news for you this week. The sunshine is going to continue and temperatures are even on the rise as well. Thanks to Lisa Such, who sent us this picture of her walk in Heaton Park. This afternoon, temperatures are going to reach highs of around 12 degrees, with winds light, which will make it feel warm in the sunshine. After a clear and chilly evening, low clouds, mist and fog will hopefully go in the morning. Tomorrow is set to be dry as well, temperatures around 10 or 11 degrees. Friday, dry as well. Saturday and Sunday, though, possibly slightly more cloudy and probably windier as well. Back to you.
Thanks, Helen. Well, from me, Siobhan and Will and everybody else here, thank you for watching. Don't forget to follow us at Quays News and visit our website, quaysnews.net.
Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Goodbye.